Good morning, students. Today we are going to start with the second topic of chapter life process, that is respiration. Okay, we respire air. Okay, we breathe in air, and that air contains many gases. Okay, same as we breathe out carbon dioxide. But can you tell me which gas we use for breathing in? That gas is oxygen. For breathing in, we need oxygen and we release out carbon dioxide. Okay, so the simple process of releasing carbon dioxide and intaking oxygen is very important for the survival of the organisms. Okay, for survival, we need to release carbon dioxide and we need to intake oxygen. Okay, now under this topic we are going to cover respiration, breathing versus respiration, types of respiration, different modes of respiration, characteristics of respiratory organs, respiratory system of men, and mechanism of breathing. The most important is mechanism of breathing, cellular respiration, and respiratory disorder. And in the last, we are going to see respiration in plants and photosynthesis. Now, what actually is respiration? What actually is respiration? Now, see, we need to breathe in order to survive, and for this, we take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. We release out carbon dioxide. You can see from this simple diagram that this lady is releasing carbon dioxide and taking oxygen. This process is known as respire. We respire through nostrils. Okay, we release carbon dioxide and we intake air. Air is a mixture of different gases. Now, this oxygen is utilized to break down the complex food particles. Okay, this oxygen is utilized to break down the complex food particles to release energy, and that energy is needed for the survival of the organisms. Okay, so the key points are breathe. Okay, why we breathe? To survive, and to survive what we need? We need oxygen and we have to release carbon dioxide. Okay, by the process of respiration, we break down the complex food particles to release energy. Now, many times we know that breathing and respiration, both terms are used as synonymous, but in actual, both have different meanings. Okay, we simply say we respire or we breathe, but both the terms are totally different from each other. Respiration is simply exchange of gases from the atmosphere and inside the body. Okay, so we intake carbon dioxide and we intake oxygen and we release carbon dioxide, and that oxygen is utilized in the process of respiration. And in the process of respiration, inside the alveoli, exchange of gases takes place inside the alveoli. Okay, and the oxygen enter into the bloodstream and reaches to the body cells, and from there carbon dioxide enters into the bloodstream and reaches to the lungs for purification. Okay, now we can see that what is the real difference between breathing and respiration. Okay, now breathing is simple exchange of gases, that is taking in carbon dioxide and giving out, taking in oxygen. Sorry, I'm again just slip of tongue. So we intake oxygen and we release carbon dioxide, whereas in respiration we intake oxygen and that oxygen is used for the process of oxidation of food. Oxidation of food means breakdown of food particles. Okay, breakdown of food particles. Why we are breaking down food particles? To release energy. We are breaking down the food particles to release energy, and that energy is utilized by the body. Okay, now breakdown is a is very essential in the presence of oxygen only. That food is broken down in the presence of oxygen and it releases energy plus carbon dioxide. Okay, it gives out the byproduct is carbon dioxide. Okay, now breathing is a physical process because physical organs are needed. External environment as well as the body. These two things are needed in the breathing process. Whereas respiration is a biochemical process. Why? Because here, with the help of some chemicals, energy is released. Okay, the chemicals are broken down with the help of photosynthesis, or there are many other processes. Respiration can be common in both. Okay, common in both plants as well as the animals. Now, in breathing, no energy is produced, and in respiration, energy is produced. Lots of energy is being produced in respiration. No enzymes are involved in breathing, whereas enzymes are involved in respiration process. And breathing is an external process. That's why it is known as not a cellular process, whereas respiration takes place inside the cell. That's why it is known as cellular process. Respiration is a cellular process. Okay, now we are going to start with the respiration. What is respiration, or this process of respiration? It involves first thing intake of oxygen, then oxidation of food, and then giving out carbon dioxide. So we can define respiration as a process in which we intake oxygen and release energy by the process of oxidation of food. Okay, here energy is released as well as the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is also released in this process of respiration. We can say the byproduct is the carbon dioxide. Okay, we intake oxygen, we release out carbon dioxide, that is the byproduct. Okay, now that oxygen which is present inside the body, it combines with the complex food particles and release energy. Next thing we are going to study in this is types of respiration. Types of respiration, we are having aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration. You had studied about it before also. Aerobic respiration, as it say, aerobic respiration is in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic in the absence of oxygen. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen as well as anaerobic in the absence of oxygen. Here you can say, for example, in human beings, respiration can take place in the presence of oxygen only. It can take place in the presence of oxygen. Now that's why this process is known as aerobic respiration. And this aerobic respiration involves first thing glucose. Glucose is present inside the food. Okay. This glucose is converted into an acid which is known as pyruvic acid. This is a common step which takes place in every organism. Okay. So the production of oxygen, production of pyruvic acid takes place in all the organism. Okay, glucose, what is the formula of glucose? C6H12O6. Okay, glucose is C6H12O6, and this breaking down of glucose is known as glycolysis. Okay, breaking down of oxygen is known as glycolysis. Now this glycolysis takes place inside the cell. Okay, the blue region of the cell. Blue region of the cell, you can say what it can be. It is cytoplasma. Okay, aerobic respiration takes place inside the cytoplasma. Okay, sorry, glycolysis takes place inside the cytoplasma. The first step is the glycolysis. Now this pyruvic acid, on the basis of presence of or absence of oxygen, it releases the amount of energy. Presence or absence of oxygen will lead to the release of energy. Okay. Now, when after the glycolysis, this pyruvic acid is broken down in the presence of oxygen. Then it is converted into a chemical form which is known as ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It is also known as energy currency of the cell. In the presence of oxygen, 38 ATP is being released plus carbon dioxide plus water. Okay. So this much high amount of energy is being produced in the presence of oxygen. That is 38 ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. Okay, 1 gram of glucose can release 38 ATP of energy. 1 gram of glucose can release 38 ATP of energy, and this is known as Krebs cycle. This conversion of pyruvic acid into 38 ATP of energy is known as Krebs cycle. Okay. Now, the next type of respiration is anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, as it says, it takes place in the absence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. For example, in some bacteria, they can prepare their food in the absence of oxygen. Okay. Now this process involves the first step, which is same in all the organism, is glycolysis, and this glycolysis process does not require any oxygen. Okay. So first step is common, which is known as pyruvic acid formation. Now this pyruvic acid formation takes place inside the cytoplasma. Okay. Anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, when oxygen is absent. Okay. When oxygen is absent, then they'll release a chemical compound plus 2 ATP. Okay. Energy. That energy is known as lactic acid. Okay. Lactic acid get accumulated inside our muscles. It gets accumulated inside our muscles. Whenever you do some haptic work, for example, best seen in the sports persons. Okay, sports person, when they start their practice in the first session, when they suddenly start their practice, then lots of lactic acid gets accumulated, or we can say that their muscles get cramped very easily, and that muscle cramp is because of the presence of lactic acid. It is hard for them to move when they did not practice for long duration of time, and suddenly they do that work. That time our body needs more amount of energy, and for that our cytoplasma as well as the mitochondria both starts working together. At that time, a byproduct lactic acid is being released. That lactic acid is accumulated inside the muscles. Okay. Now we can say that this process takes place in the absence of oxygen or insufficient supply of oxygen. Now this takes place inside the cytoplasma. This process takes place inside the cytoplasma. It releases less amount of energy. You can say 2 ATP of the energy is being released. Okay. 1 gram of, in case of anaerobic respiration, 2 ATP is being produced, whereas in case of aerobic respiration, 38 ATP is being produced. So more suitable is the aerobic respiration. Now, in case of anaerobic respiration, we had heard a word which is known as fermentation. In fermentation, when oxygen is not present at all. Okay, then ethanol is being produced, alcohol is being produced. That process is also known as fermentation is a process when oxygen is absent. It mainly takes place with the help of yeast. Okay, with the help of yeast, ethanol is being produced with the help of yeast bacteria. Okay, in this case complex sugar substances are being simplified. Complex sugar substances are simplified with the help of some enzymes, and energy is being produced. Okay, now, during exercise, our muscles shows anaerobic respiration. Thus, energy produced per glucose molecules is only 2 ATP, and rest is the lactic acid. The amount of lactic acid produced is very high in case of anaerobic respiration. Okay. Now here very less and our energy requirement is very high, means the energy produced is very less and our energy requirement is very high. Therefore, more and more glucose is being oxidized to produce more energy, and along with that more lactic acid is produced, and this lactic acid gets accumulated in the muscles and it causes pain inside the muscles. Okay, now our next topic is modes of respiration. Modes of respiration we are going to study in our next class about different modes of respiration, because there are different organisms and they respire through different organs. We are going to study about that in our next class. Till then, I hope you had understood the topic types of respiration. Now, I would like your valuable suggestions and your comment about this video. So please read your book. Till then, we are going to meet our next session. Till then, goodbye. Have a nice day. Okay.